I just handed out our monthly report. The reason it's in, instead of on the screen, the reason I handed it out is because it contains a little bit more information than normal. So not only does it have our monthly crime stats listed, but it also has our scraps reports for the last 2 months, which is included. And then, as you know, we're part of the Greater Spokane Emergency Management Consortium. So part of that, council is now doing a quarterly report, mostly to keep elected officials informed as to what they've been working on. And so that report is also included in that particular packet. Just to mention another thing about emergency management is that when Liberty Lake became officially over 10,000 population, that granted us a seat at the table for that board. And so I'm this representative for the city on the Greater Spokane Emergency Management Board, in addition to the Emergency Management Operations Group. So if you have questions about the stats, please let me know. Other than those things, just a couple things to bring up. One is that our 2 newest officers, so Tuan and Stephanie, are this week doing their shadow phase of field training. So they're in a car by themselves, but being followed by a patrol officer. Once they are successfully completed that phase after this week, then they'll be out on their own. And each one will be working graveyard shift on opposite sides of the week. So we're excited to have them on board. And they've done a great job, and there's been no issues in their training at all. So we're excited to have them on board. As far as our recruitment goes, we're working on background packets right now for our top 3 candidates. Once that initial background is done, then we'll schedule an interview with the mayor and Katie to make a hiring decision. You might have heard this, but I'm very proud to announce that Liberty Lake was announced the 5th safest city in Washington State. It comes out each year. The good news is that we've moved up in ranking from the 9th safest last year to the 5th safest this year. So we are going in a very good direction. So very proud of our officers and the community for making that happen. Legislatively in the state level, if you've been following that, one of the concerns that we have in law enforcement is about the number of academy classes and getting enough officers trained. So good news is currently in the funding is they're changing it from 10 police academies a year funding to 19 police academies a year, which equates to capacity to train 270 additional officers each year. So let's hope the budget continues to move forward as planned.
How many did it normally go to the academy? So 10
in a class, so usually it's about 25 to 30 in a class, each class. Yeah. This is interesting that we handed out our 400th golf cart registration this week, so it was pretty fun. And just 2 last things. One is I've been working on recruiting a civil service commissioner for an opening, so I have a person that expressed interest. So I'm getting more information to that person, and then I'll introduce him to the mayor and make a decision. And the rest of my time, I'd like to introduce a special guest that just came to Liberty Lake. He's a police officer from Australia. So Chris, you want to come up? You can take my spot actually right here for a second. And so he's spending the night with me tonight. And he's here. No. Yeah. So he's here. He's here on a special mission, and I'll let him talk about that. But we've had the pleasure of spending a couple hours together already, and then he's staying the night with us tonight, and then we're moving on to his next location tomorrow. But Chris, want to just take a couple minutes and let him know what you're doing?
Thank you, Chief. My name's Chris Hay. I'm a senior constable officer in charge of a one-man police station in Queensland. I'm actually doing a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital Foundation in Queensland to raise, I'm visiting 48 states in 48 days. And I'm doing it with little use of public transport, hire cars, so basically just getting people such as Brian to help me out. And it's so far working out, so far, touch wood. So I landed in San Francisco on Friday, and I've made my way already through California, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Oregon, and now Washington. So I'm off to Montana tomorrow, But the reason that I'm actually doing it is because my son had a liver transplant back in 2012 when he was 16 months old, and I actually donated part of my liver to him. So we spent a lot of time in the hospitals, so it's just my way of trying to give money back to them. And I've lived in America. It's always been a dream of mine to visit all 48 states, so why not do it and raise money at the same time? So I'm attempting to raise $24,500 because I'm going to visit the national capital as well, and I've got businesses back home that have sponsored $500 per state, and when I get to the state, I let them know and they donate the money. So that's basically what I'm doing. So excuse me. So
I've tried to recruit Chris.
Yeah.
As part of our recruiting effort. He's turned me down already. So.
yeah. There's a whole green card issue. I mean, otherwise, I'm pretty sure my wife would love it here.
I always come back and visit.
Yeah. Oh, we will. Don't worry about that.
Do you have the donation site information that, or can you get it to Chiefs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yes, certainly.
Do you have it available?
Yeah, I can do that.
That would be
Yeah,
great.
there's a Facebook page and everything.
And I commend you on what you're trying to accomplish. It's a big task
Yeah.
and not easy.
Yeah, I worked that out. Yeah. And I'd set rules for myself, a certain budget and certain conditions that I should abide by. I made the rules so I can bend them. So. Because once you're on the ground, you don't realise how hard it is until you've actually set foot on the ground. And it's working out so far. I've had a few hiccups, like last night. Somebody pulled out at the very last minute from East Wenatchee. So I had to quickly arrange a ride right through to here. And it was worked out. There was a retired state trooper who helped me out, and he sorted it out. It was perfect.
Good. How, go ahead.
Connections and all the states laid out.
Mostly. No, I've got a few that I need to still sort out. I've got connections in a lot of them. Once I get to Springfield, Illinois, most of it's sorted, apart from a little bit in Georgia and northern Florida and Kentucky. But once I get to Frankfort, Kentucky, if I can make it out of the Buffalo Trace Distillery, I'm set. I've got everything covered from there, because I was an exchange student upstate New York, so the whole northeast is covered. It's got me pretty much covered. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.
And then last thing I have to share with you, unless you have questions, is that it must be Community Helper month or week last month. So we had several visits to and from preschools, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and so here's a few pictures of a couple of our visits, which was very fun. We wrapped up the kids in crime scene tape. They thought that was brilliant. There's another picture. Yeah, they're there. They're pretty excited. And then there's Jeff Jones sitting in the middle of circle time, talking to the preschool kids. So we had a good time doing that. Officers really enjoyed that. And it's nice to interact with them. So with that, I will happy to answer questions that you might have. Okay.
Brian, I just really appreciate your outreach to the youth, specifically the school-aged kids. This is such a great moment trying to introduce, I'd say, policemen as part of the community and friends. So I really value that. Thanks.
Yeah, it was interesting that the teachers had them fill out a little survey, if you will, about what do police officers do, right? And these are 3, 4, 5-year-olds, and sad to say that the majority put down they shoot people. That was the majority of the answers. So we made sure we addressed what police officers really do in the community, and so it's well received, and kids had a great time, and the officers had a great time.
Right on.
Very good. Also, I want to commend you and the police department for getting us to that ranking. I know how hard you guys work, how much follow-up you guys do on different scenarios around the city for crimes. And it's not an easy task to get ranked number 5 in this state, so I appreciate your guys' hard efforts.
And I think we were the only Eastern Washington city in the.
Pullman, but they were,
Oh, Paul.
we were the top.
They don't.
I don't know.
I'm gonna put up the maps right
So Facebook hasn't totally blown up yet, but I see it coming on the whole golf cart issue again.
Oh, yes.
Can we put
Yes.
something up on the PD page, Facebook page, so we can share it back to the community?
You're absolutely correct.
Or
So
just
yes, we will
bump
do that.
what we've had in the past?
Correct. We will do that.
I see it's just starting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and the one, somebody posted a picture of the kids in the golf cart over Legacy Ridge.
Yes.
I sent it to my son, I said, is that who I think it is? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we need to get it out there.
If you get a chance to talk to Chief from the fire station, tell him thank you to his guys for responding the way they did to the fire at the apartment complex.
Yeah. So those that have not heard, so there was a press release the Spokane Valley Fire put out. Shane was actually working as a reserve officer capacity that day, and so there was a contractor's vehicle that caught fire under the apartments, Legacy Villas. Luckily, those were not occupied; they were still under construction, but it did catch those on fire as well. So LLP is one of the first to arrive on scene. Did the best we could with our little fire extinguishers to at least slow it down a little bit until the fire could respond. But in their press release, they recognized our department for doing a good job and being there quickly to help suppress that.
I told Chief in all my years of doing law enforcement, I don't think I've ever been so nervous as to be engulfed by smoke in a fire with a fire extinguisher. I almost passed out at one point because the smoke was so bad.
It's bad.
It scared the tar out of me, so I was grateful for the firefighters when they showed up.
Justin,
All right, is the clicker thing somewhere? Thank you. All right. Mayor and council, just reporting on what's happening at the library. So, last month, we had quite a few items check out, and we had a number of people come to story times. We could tell that the February weather is done because people started coming back. We had about 4,700 people come through the doors. I'm excited to put that up there because we're using our new people tracker to actually accurately track the people coming in and out. So I really enjoy accurate statistics. And we also had some people come and visit us. We had the Children's Academy come out and do a number of visits, around 10, I think. So Jandy did a story time and gave them tours. And it was really interesting to watch the kids get so excited when they learned that they could get a library card when they turn 5. And they're like, I'm 5, I'm 5. So that was really nice. And we've actually seen a lot of them come back. You know, we did a tour and, she just turned 5. So that was really nice. The board and I have been working on policy updates. The biggest one was we recently updated our circulation policy. We combined a bunch into one. But when they did that, they took a look at daily overdue fines, and they decided that we would stop charging those. So we're going to eliminate that daily overdue fine. It'll have a minimal impact on our library budget. We're able to make that work. And as part of this, we'll also be waiving many of the outstanding balances that people have just in the overdue fines. Why did they decide to do this? Maybe a question that you're wondering. So, first, there is a growing trend in libraries to stop doing this. And the main reasons are, first, the staff expense of actually taking in the fine. So, when we're looking at that, staff time can be better spent providing other services because we're essentially paying staff dollars to take in nickels and dimes. So when you do the cost-benefit analysis, it makes a little bit more sense to not necessarily do that. Research is showing that late fines aren't actually effective. So studies show that small fines, the 10 cent a day thing, doesn't have an impact on the return rates. And when they look at return rates between libraries charging fines and those not charging fines, there's no difference. Also, we feel it's good for the community because charging overdue fines doesn't support the library's mission, which is really to enrich lives and build the community. And then, of course, overdue fines disproportionately impact those with limited incomes. So, that being said, we still want our things back. So, what are we doing to get borrowers to return our materials on time? Well, of course, lost and damaged item fees still apply. So, after 30 days, your library account is suspended, so you can't check anything out until it comes back. And after a certain amount of time, and it's not come back, if it hits a certain threshold, then we do send you a letter saying, hey, we need it back, or we have to send you over to the collections agency. It's our least happy thing to do, but we do. We also promote the My Account feature on our website, which shows due dates and things like that, and also shows them if there is something that is considered lost. And then we are encouraging people to sign up for text or email alerts because they receive notifications 3 days before items are due, 7 days after they're due, and at 35 days overdue after we've marked the items lost. So trying to make it be informational for them. So, other news coming up this month in April, we have National Library Week next week and also Volunteer Appreciation Week. So if you want to come in and appreciate the library, feel free. We will welcome you. In 2018, our volunteers worked just over 1,000 hours for us. That's a large contribution. And we are having a volunteer appreciation party on Thursday, April 18th from 2 to 4 p.m. We'll have snacks and some games, and all of you are invited if you'd like to attend. Our needs assessment project, I wanted to give you an update. We are still in the selection process. I'm hoping to have it on the next council for the contract, but it's ongoing. And then, of course, it is spring break, as many of you may know, and we recognize that at the library, so we have some things going on. We've got Family Bingo was today. We have Chess Club being taught by Michelle and Travis tomorrow, Art Madness and Lego Madness. And then we partnered with Rotary on April 4th, so Radical Rick is going to be there for part of their meeting, and they wanted to invite the community to come and attend as well. So Radical Rick on the 4th at 12:10. This month we'll also have Lego Mindstorms. That's going to be for teens. And Jandy actually isn't super familiar with Mindstorms. And when the person she worked with in the past wasn't able to actually come and do it for us, she put it out on the Facebook page saying, hey, is anybody familiar with this? Would anybody like to work with us to offer this to our teens? And we had somebody respond. So it's actually a community member who's teaching that. We're also doing a Peeps Diorama Challenge. So using that ubiquitous Easter candy to create a scene from a book or movie. That is for tweens and teens. And then we're having a home organizing class for adults. We also have a Lego contest going on the latter half of the month. So that's for youth. Kids can create a Lego project, bring it into the library, and then the community will have a chance to vote on it. I'll admit, I told my nephew about it, and he was like, right here, well, what do they like? What do they want? What do I need to do? So there might be some excitement about that program. And so those are just some of the highlights of what's been going on at the library. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Oh, great job.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Of course.
Lisa?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So a couple things that I just wanted to touch on that are on your agenda tonight. Scott Bernard is going to be leading the Trailhead Workshop, and we do have the second read on the tree ordinance amendments. While I don't have a presentation for you, if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And on the 16th, we are anticipating that we'll have the dedication of Indiana Avenue public right-of-way improvements to come before you. And I'm also going to be leading a workshop on 4G, 5G small cell ordinance. And I'll talk about that in a little bit later in the report. In terms of our development project highlights, it is April OFM reporting season. And I wanted to share with you that we did issue 165 certificates of occupancy in the last 12 months. And that's not individual housing units. There's more housing units than that. That's just the total number of structures that we issued certificates of occupancy on. And already this spring we have 158 active construction projects. So the guys in building are pretty busy right now. We did have our Ridgeline High School pre-construction meeting on March 20th, and that was for the early site work that they're doing. We do have a preliminary site design review meeting scheduled for next week, and that's looking at the full design. We've had a couple meetings with them, but it is moving forward quickly. In terms of code amendments, so you do have your second read ordinance tonight, and if you do adopt it, the effective date is we're anticipating publication on the 19th of April, so the effective date would be April 24th, just in time for Arbor Day. We also have the food truck ordinance. We are making good progress on that. The Planning Commission has a hearing scheduled on the 10th. We are on track to bring it back to you for a hearing, for a workshop tentatively on the 7th, and then a hearing tentatively on the 21st. So we are moving as quickly as we can on that. For the hearing before Planning Commission, we did reach out and give specific notice to both the brick and mortar restaurants that were in opposition last time, as well as the new tasting room cluster of businesses that we have opening up.
Have you heard anything back from anybody on that? Just curious.
I heard that, I think that the distillery is going to be there for sure, but we have gotten no comments, 0 comments. We also have a workshop, hearing on amendments to our design review ordinance. And that, again, we would tentatively expect to workshop that with you on May 7th. If it's a heavy agenda, we'll push that off till the second meeting in May. But we would tentatively be bringing it forward to hearing in June. So we're busy. With respect to the 5G small cell amendments, Verizon has perfected their application for a franchise agreement. So under the 120-day shot clock that from the FCC's declaratory ruling, we need to approve that franchise agreement on or before July 16th. And so that's back burner for right now, but the ordinance is actually front burner for us because we want to make sure that we have that ordinance in place. We've had several workshops with Planning Commission. I'm hoping we have a couple hearings, and if time permits, we will likely be workshopping it again this time with an outline of the ordinance. We expect to have a draft of the ordinance for their next meeting, and hopefully we are on track to have a hearing in June. So tentatively, City Council will hear that in July. Now, we can potentially schedule an extra meeting if we need to get that through. I want to make sure that we get that ordinance right, but we've been doing a lot of research, and I have some confidence that we have some good models of what we can do and how we can do it to really protect the aesthetics within our city. So feeling really positive about that. It's actually going to be very beneficial from an economic development standpoint, but we want to make sure that it doesn't happen to us, and that we have some control over how it happens. So I think that that's important. Anyhow, the other thing is that if it takes a little longer to get this through the normal process, one option at our disposal, while we cannot, under the FCC declaratory rule, we cannot issue a moratorium. What we can do is we can adopt interim rules, even if it's not the final version that we want to bring forward, and that will at least give us some coverage once the franchise agreement is in place, because if they were to turn around the next day and submit a permit application, we'd have 60 days to process it, and we would not have a code in place. So trying to be very sensitive to those topics as we move forward, but more to come at our workshop at the next meeting. And one other thing I did want to bring to your attention is that in addition to the staff recommended comprehensive plan and code amendments that we covered at our last meeting, we did get one privately initiated amendment from Greenstone, and they are looking at the issue of maximum lot coverage for single-family homes in the R1 zone. this is really insider baseball, okay? We allow for single-family homes, the maximum lot coverage in the R1 zone is 40%. Now, interestingly enough, a duplex or a townhome in the R1 zone is allowed 60% lot coverage. In the River District, the lot coverage is actually 80%, and it's assumed that it's being balanced with common open space and whatnot. So, long story short is that they're bumping into some problems on the single-family homes in the R1 zone, sometimes not really being challenged to get under that 40%. So they have proposed an amendment, and more to be workshopped and whatnot, but it seems like it's a reasonable request. So with that, one final thing, so we continue to work with GSI on the Economic Development website as a partner agency. We will be bringing some language and for our partner page at some point. GSI still owes us a letter agreement. We're waiting on GSI to bring back their request for funding, but we continue to be at the table as part of the ADO on that. So I'll have more information to share with you as that develops. And with that, Scott, I want to turn it over to Scott to present just a status report on our capital projects, unless you have questions.
I have a quick question. So Lisa, and I'm sure, which is usually the case when it comes time to talk about that Greenstone requested amendment, but they'll probably be here. I know the last go around when we were talking about the minimum lot sizes and all that stuff, I think a lot of us speculated the reasoning behind it and everything, and then close to the end, it came to light, well, a lot of the reason behind their request is because of the topography of where they were. If that's the case in this situation, which it sounds like it might be, it would be great if they would bring that up early on in the process, so we're not all speculating as to the reasons why.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I will certainly request that of the applicant. Yes, sir.
I have a question in regards to the GSI you're referring to, but correct me if I'm wrong, that's where they came to us and requested $7,500, and we still haven't decided that I asked this question here a few meetings ago, and they're kind of waiting to see if other cities are going to get involved in this.
Right, and he's given us an update on the status of that, and I don't have that right in front of me, but I believe the city of Spokane is at 19.5. I've got the list, and that is part of the letter that I asked of him, was to include what commitments he's got from other entities. And so that needs to come back to you. Until you authorize that, nothing happens.
But didn't I just hear you say that you're continuing to work on that?
Yes, well, so regardless of whether we commit funding to the, we are a member of GSI, and we're part of the Economic Development Coalition that they've put together. Whether or not we participate in the page, whether or not we have a page, because of timelines, I need to work on our piece of it so that we're ready in the timeline that they're ready to launch this website. But again, I've mentioned to Todd on several occasions that he owes me a letter. He knows he owes me a letter, and I can't do anything until he provides me with a letter to provide to you.
To be honest with you, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that. I'm uncomfortable if they approach us with the idea of asking for $7,500, and then I heard a comment, well, we probably could get $5,000. But I don't see we've had extensive discussion at all at council. We're going to move forward on something like that. And then I'm hearing that we're putting time and effort into this. So I understand you're saying we're part of the GSI. I understand that completely.
Well,
I'm a little apprehensive that we put a lot of time and effort that suddenly will come to the council almost like, well, we've done all this work, so we need to do this.
That is not my intent, but we are already part of the, we already pay into the Select Spokane. This is going to be the next iteration of the Select Spokane. It's combining the Advantage Spokane and Select Spokane websites. Whether or not we pay into it, we are still members, and we are still participants in the ADO alliance that they're creating. And that's my role, is participating in that. And so, and whether or not we pay into it, and not every entity necessarily is or will. But whether or not we pay into it, I believe Spokane Valley is like 10,000. I believe, I want to say Cheney is 5,000. Airway Heights, I think was 7,500.
The Spokane was what?
What they were, so they committed 9,500. They've already paid in 9,500, and they have another 10,000 that they're going to be providing from the PDAs. And so they're going to be at 19,500.
So 20,000 for 250,000 people, and we're 11,000, 10,000 people.
And that's the
75.
discussion, and I have reminded Todd over and over again that council has not yet committed to anything because we haven't gotten anything formal to put before you. I've requested that, and so he's aware, and I have been very, very clear that unless and until council approves this, that there is no commitment on the part of the city.
I guess the major thought is, what's the benefit? There's cost-benefit analysis to some extent, but benefit from, I think for Spokane, they've got these 3 or 4 PDAs going on right now.
Four.
And then Cheney, has got a couple of things going there. We're kind of minimalized from the standpoint of development of what we have going on, availability for participate, for benefit. Again, it's be at the table and get the information is not a bad thing.
I certainly don't disagree with you on that, and I can see that there's probably some benefit, there's always some benefit to be involved in many things, but what I look at is proportionate.
No, I agree.
Proportionate.
That's
If we have 200,000 people who are going to kick in 20,000, and they hopefully we're going to 7,500, and before there was ever a discussion, what I heard was, well, we could probably get 5,000. Before
I
even
agree
benefit was
with you.
really discussed.
We have this discussion a lot, no matter, pick a subject. There's 400,000, 500,000 people in the county. There's 200,000 in the city of Spokane, 100,000 now in the city of Spokane Valley. And is it proportional? We fought that even for the noxious weed deal.
Well, that's a good subject, yeah, we could always talk about noxious weed, that's a real good one.
If I could though, one thing I would say is that they have the one page that is promoting the region and regional statistics, the regional workforce, the availability of specific industry clusters region-wide. But then the concept is also that there's individual landing pages. And guess what? If we participate, the city of Liberty Lake gets the same landing page as the city of Spokane, as does the valley, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, we get equal opportunity to put out our own message about what our unique economic development opportunities are. And we do have a unique story to tell. And so, so there is some advantage, I think, to at least considering the valley, promoting our community as part of this economic development alliance.
I would like to hear that pitch from them. You just did a great job for them, but I would like to hear that pitch from them.
I have a question. I'm going to change the subject. I have the floor for a moment. I was going to ask a question about the Greenstone Initiative. Will that be, or has it been referred to the Planning Commission for their review and recommendation?
So this is part of the annual comprehensive plan and code amendments. So yes, in fact, they have not heard it yet because I just got the application on Friday, which was the deadline. And so I will be bringing that up at their April 10th meeting. So.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Lisa,
Yes, sir.
2 things. One, you said, music to my ears, when you were saying that you want to see that we cooperate with Verizon and just not be used. Perfect. Love that attitude. Also, you said that we should be looking forward to, at some point, you weren't really definite, which is okay, about when we might want to put together a temporary ordinance. And the only comment I had about that is perhaps we could be putting that together as information rolls in. If we see that there's some problems coming up with passing the general ordinance, where we wouldn't have to scramble on the last day or last meeting before to put one in.
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted to do the workshop with you all at your next meeting. I'm going to share with you highlights of the things that we should be, why we have to do it, what we can expect to be coming, and what are the things that we should be considering as part of our ordinance. So that's my
Excellent, thank you.
intent.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, anything else? I guess what time is it?
And we still have Scott's gonna give us our
Okay.
Scott's still up to the-
I thought I was going to get off.
Hey, Brett.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I just wanted to do a quick, I think it's probably about a 5-minute public works update. And I'm going to start with, later in the council packet, you'll see that there is an agenda bill for approval of the Mission Avenue contract, for the emergency contract. Good news is I've been in touch with them. They're waiting for the agreement. They'll sign it immediately, and they're ready to go to work on that as soon as next week. So it's all weather dependent. We want like 3 or 4 days of nice weather before we dive into it. It looks like the way they're going to go about it, we are going to one-lane it, so it'll probably take 3 or 4 days total. We are going to advance sign it. Stephen's picking up some message boards so we can at least get the word out.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
who's we going to pre-sign?
We, the city of Liberty Lake, is going to produce.
We are the city of Liberty Lake.
speech.
So I'm asking, what is it that you're going to pre-sign?
Oh, we're just going to give advance notice.
Not a contract.
Signage.
Oh,
Spread
I'm
the
just,
signage on the
okay,
street.
yeah, we're going to put out variable
It's
message.
a lot more discussion.
We're not gonna pre-sign that.
I'm not signing anything.
Pre-sign.
Thank you. Okay, now I can,
Now you know where I'm going.
thank you. Sorry about that.
That was great.
That's awesome. And that's all I have to say about that.
So Scott, they're gonna work on one lane at a time and then we'll flag it. Scott, what can people expect during the night when the flaggers aren't there? Will people be driving on dirt?
I think we want to minimize traffic on dirt as much as possible, but it will be overnight on dirt.
And what does-
Twice.
They can only work on one lane at a road. They wanted to close the road and do it, and we said no because there's no detour. So then it's one lane at a time, and so someone's gonna be driving on dirt
Would it be
for a few
feasible
days.
at that time during the night to add some extra lighting there through the contractors? Just to light it up real well?
Oh, we could, sure, we
It's
could.
just, I think it's a good safety measure if we
Okay.
add lights to bring it to everybody's attention. that
Yeah, we can put a couple light plants out. So we'll have the advanced signage, and then
I'll sign it early.
we'll have the rough road signs, and then if we could put some light plants out. That's not an expensive item.
So I'm a little confused as to why it was brought up, the idea of doing it all in one shot, when we knew then.
They wanted to do it in 2 days. If they could shut the road down, Councilmember Brickner, they could shut the road down, they get it done in 2 days.
I understand that. We had talked about that, and we thought that was the best idea. But now all of a
Logistically,
sudden, we can't do that? We knew what our roads were then.
I'm not tracking.
I don't think we made a decision. We talked about, we would decide after we got the bids
It-
what was the best
Right.
path.
Yeah, it's still an option if the council really wanted to go that way. Matter of fact, that's their preferred method. They'll do it either way,
They
but
wanted,
they want to shut it down.
Yeah.
Why don't
School
you share
buses.
with us
school buses,
the other day?
tell them why
What do you
we,
think?
I would prefer to shut it down and just get it done. And the reason for that is once you get the asphalt off the top, then you're gonna have traffic on it, and there's a lot more risk of damaging that subgrade before you get the asphalt back on. So I would prefer to do it in a 2-day closure. But we know STA runs down through there. We know,
school buses.
Is there an opportunity to do that like on a weekend or, Friday to Monday type thing?
yes?
And that would be probably the best idea. People can find their way around, then you can notify STA, they can make arrangements and same.
Fire, police, county police, there's definitely a notification list we'd have to go down.
Remind me how many days it was gonna take if we doing it by the one lane at a time?
If we do it one lane at a time, it'll be 4 to 5 days.
Steve, I'm curious, when do you sort of anticipate the weekend when people aren't working, there would be more traffic on that?
Pardon?
Wouldn't you think that maybe on the weekend there'd be more traffic because people aren't working? You might have more traffic than on a week, I mean, I don't care either way,
From,
weekend or not, but
I guess the issue is, you want to get it done as quickly as possible. You try to create other pathways. And the weekend, maybe there's not as much activity or necessary activity
That's right.
to take place, I'm not sure.
what do you, from my perspective, and thank you for bringing up the public safety issue, Dan, to bust it out in 2 days sounds like a better option, especially when you're talking about public safety, because to have a police officer running code on a one-way road where they have stop signs for 4 days is not the best of ideas. And I just feel like the 2-day option, if it's feasible, would be way more appropriate, not only from that perspective, but also from the perspective of
No, there's no detour.
the downtime for our citizens. There is a detour because you have Barker.
Just a minute. So the detour for the people that live over there, if you're going from Harvard to Barker and you're on the north side of I-90, there is no detour.
yes, there is, you can use Euclid.
Euclid?
Yes,
Near the highway,
and the highway,
Lotus Orchards.
right on the other side.
North of the river.
It's a long detour, but you can't.
It is.
Yeah.
But from a standpoint of public
Euclid's on the
safety
north side of the river.
Yes.
and the citizens having that road shut down for 4 days compared to 2, it makes more sense from my perspective, and I'm only speaking for myself, that the 2-day would be.
Well, I can make it happen either way. I think it's the council decision which way you guys want to go.
I
No?
would think what we're
You
hearing,
say no?
I think
tonight
we
is
should-
why couldn't we make a decision tonight?
I think we should let the engineers and the city staff figure it out. So that's Scott and Stephen.
Well, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Scott is saying that,
I don't
prefer
think we
to do
should
it in
defer
2
to
days.
city council on this. I think that we should let the project manager coordinate it with the contractor.
I agree with that completely, you know.
Because I
I
think
don't think
that,
it's a city council
I
decision.
think the fire department and the police department all need to weigh in, as well as the school and STA.
There's a lot of traffic and people that live over there and people that live in Otis Orchards, and as much as we can get the word out, it's just very challenging to close a road down on the north side of I-90, between the river, between Harvard and Barker. Yes, there's other routes. Yes, you can go down I-90 or Euclid, but I think we should leave it up to the project team. And I'm not going to weigh in. I asked Scott to use his best judgment. So right now, we decided, you decided it would be a 4-day project, 4 to 5 days.
But he also said he
But
would
he also said he-
prefer to shut it down for 2 days and have it done at one time.
That-
I just think one thing it would do is it would delay it, because by the time I get everybody's buy-in from law enforcement and do the advance warning and all that, I think, yes.
Scott, yeah, let me just throw out my personal opinion on this. You know, if we shut it down 100%, okay, we have to think of the responsibility of doing that. Ambulances, fire trucks, police cars, STA public transit, and those all have responsibilities within the zone that road gets to. And all those vehicles require to get there in time, whatever time may be, but a rapid response. If we close it off in totality, we're going to make either a choice to have these emergency vehicles run over lousy terrain, around equipment, okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or take a long way around, okay, all for the sake of some time. And I personally would just like to say, yeah, to me it makes sense, 1 lane at a time, we'll have it open, somebody can get through when needed, and if that just results in one person getting a little quicker service that really needs it, well worth the extra day or days. Thank you.
Scott, you mentioned the concern about doing 1 lane at a time with it, the substructure maybe being damaged slightly. This is just a temporary repair. Do you see any issue, that being a significant enough concern that it would not allow that emergency repair to last until the road gets rebuilt in a couple years?
No, we did put provisions in the contract if we had to do any subgrade repair. But, I mean, less traffic's better, for sure.
But again, we're only
But-
looking, we're only looking for this to last
If it's only
a couple
overnight,
of years.
yeah, if it's only overnight, then hopefully there's not a ton of traffic, right? Not as much as during the day, there's no heavy bus traffic.
But if it's gonna make a difference between it lasting a year versus 2 years, might be concerned, but if it.
We
we're
won't
looking for a
compromise
life-
the end result.
Yeah, but we'll make sure it's good for 2 years. Okay, that was question number one. The second one, I just want to mention that Orchard Park is off to the races again for those that don't live in the area. They started framing on the maintenance shed. They got the playground equipment completed. They are putting in paths, and they put in the rock entry sign today. So you should start to see some things happening there that are
We
exciting.
can't get there 'cause the road's bad.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I call him a rock snowman, but whatever.
The roads are closed.
Yeah.
The road is closed, oh my God.
The other thing I was going to mention is that we did have kind of a little commissioning meeting discussion, and we're gonna try and focus them to make sure that everything to the north of basically the restrooms, they focus on getting that complete first, so that at least we can have the splash pad, the playground equipment, at least one of the shelters, and tennis courts all open by either Memorial Day or first part of June. So I think we were talking about a June 15th commissioning. Or some kind of formal opening, so put that date down. Signal at Matson and Appleway, it went out to bid last Friday. Bids closed in about 3 weeks. We have some interest so far. I'm gonna let Katie regale you with tales on Harvard Road widening and Henry Road, those 2 projects. That's proceeding with the legislature. Signal at Signal and Appleway. And I met with Brian earlier today, and we did get pricing to be able to move that cabinet box back. And the pricing's $32,000. I do not have enough in contingency to cover that, so if the council thinks they want, talking to Brian, I don't know, you want to say a few words, Brian?
Yeah, so you're familiar with the issues of that intersection. We had another accident that occurred there that was supposedly a contributing factor was the visibility because of the box. And I know that there's been talk about doing a staggered, stop bars. The most recent accident was a person making a right turn on Appleway from Signal and couldn't see because of the box. Talking to all the officers, they're concerned with that intersection because of the visibility. One of the sergeants just recently said, he's almost involved in an accident hitting a UPS truck because he looked left, right, and then left again, and between the right and looking left again, he said this is a big UPS truck kind of showed up out of nowhere, and it just ended up being in that blind spot of where that box is. I know it's a lot of money, but then again, if it becomes a liability issue for the city, or a lawsuit or a accident that results in injury.
How much contingency do you have?
I have about 15,000 left.
So you have basically a 17,000.
It'd be roughly $15,000 to $16,000.
So
Yeah.
you just need a change order or no?
I just need a council bill to get approval, because I was only authorized for a certain amount of contingency.
I think that's.
Can we take a motion, sir?
Yep, I would say.
Okay, I don't have anything formal prepared, but,
Well, I would say, my personal opinion, it's well worth it, especially now that we've talked about it, and the city has
Yeah.
acknowledged that it's a known issue, that opens us up to even more liability.
So during the regular meeting, why don't we amend the agenda to include council support of increasing the contingency to cover the cost to move the cabinet? And you can do that under when you approve the agenda, just amend it to include that.
I think what's important that you take into consideration is that where do you move that to? Because if we're looking at, we have to anticipate what we're going to do with that property at some point. And at some point, there's going to be a sidewalk there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would assume we're going to have some consideration. That's where the thing is going to be moved far enough back to where there's a sidewalk, it's not going to be impending, or something like that. I think for us to,
right now, that's an excellent point. Right now, the intention is to move it back with one cabinet width. So it would be about 6 feet.
I just drove there today, yeah, you guys can figure this
We'll
out. I'm not
make
sure,
it,
yeah.
sure.
Just keep in mind, we're gonna have infrastructure there, we're gonna have sidewalk, things of that sort there. The further it goes south, probably the better it is. Is there a possibility that the box could be shorter? Does it have to be as tall as it is?
Well, we're intending on reusing the existing,
Okay, well, that's fine, yeah. That's your guys' call.
Question.
yes.
I'm going to get to the main point with a couple of questions to begin with. When does the signal go into effect?
As soon as I know what I'm doing. So I've been waiting for this meeting to be able to get an answer, and the contractor's ready to go. I could probably get him out there in 2 days.
When is the?
So the signal, it would take about a week to move the box.
I'm talking about today. From today, with no further work, how long before the signal goes on?
A week from Monday.
A week from Monday. Okay. Would either you or the chief agree with me that when you approach a red light and it's red for you, that the majority of the traffic is going to stop? And then when it turns green, the majority will either go straight or turn one way or the other. Is that accurate?
Sure.
Okay. If that's accurate, when you get up to that particular intersection with a light that's turned red, how much are you worried about somebody being able to see one way or the other before the light turns green?
It's the right-hand turn on a red light.
That can be done for a lot less money. Post a sign that says no right turn on red. We've just solved the problem. We saved $17,000, okay, that everybody's awfully eager to spend without looking at all the alternatives. In a week's time, you can be up and running. In a week's time, you can have a sign planted, $100, and move on. Why isn't that, and has that not been considered as a viable option?
We discussed that option at length.
And why hasn't it been presented as a viable option?
I don't have an answer.
Okay, well, I'm not here to put you on the spot, I'm just saying, to my way of thinking, okay, it does make a viable option, and I'm looking to hear what other members may have to say about it.
I can tell you,
Waiting on this because
Well, let me hear from the council.
I just had a quick question. So, understanding your point do we anticipate a time where the light at that intersection might be red flashing at Signal and yellow flashing on Appleway, like in the middle of the night? Or is it always going to be red, green, yellow,
I'm not saying that would never happen, but right now it's anticipated to be always
a full functioning signal?
fully functional. So basically what we're setting up is we're setting up Appleway to do what they call platoon, so that all the signals on Appleway will work together, so to hopefully just flush that all out. So it'll coordinate with the one at Liberty Lake Drive and all that. And we would do that just during the peak hours. And then the rest of the time, we would just have it on sensor like our other lights are now. And there were 3 options considered: the staggered stop bars, the right turn, no right turn on. Yes.
So I got out of my truck, I sat there and looked at the option of staggering, which I thought initially was a great idea. But as I started to look at it, in order to stagger it appropriately to where you could see past the box, you'd have to bring the right-hand turn or the right side forward. If you bring it forward any further, you're going to encroach upon the public pedestrian crossing, at which point a car would be in the pedestrian crossing area, which is illegal. You cannot stop in a pedestrian crossing. You can't have your
You're talking
tires.
about crosswalk.
You are
Yeah,
correct.
so when I went out and looked at it, there was modifications you could make, but that is a good point. The other point is that if you have a free right turn and there's a car next to you and you're not staggered, you're not gonna be able to take a free right turn anyway because you won't be able to see beyond the car.
Right,
So
which
the
I
staggered-
appreciate. If you back set
Correct.
to the left, I appreciate that idea. That's why I told you it was a great idea when we first mentioned it. I hope this is a learning lesson for everybody. These things need to be thought out well ahead of time. And the second that box went in, I brought it up. I said it was a bad place for it, and we've had accidents since. We need to think these things through to the fullest extent and think about the traffic flow.
I agree.
And that box needs to be moved back. I've said it from the second the box went in, that it should have moved back, and it still needs to be moved back.
So my understanding, there'll be a council vote on this later, so.
Good motion.
Any more? Okay. Okay, last thing is we did finish up the trailhead pump that got set here last week, so that's in good shape. Northfield, we're about almost to 100% documents. And so after our review, we're ready to go out to bid on the Northfield and the maintenance trail. And Public Works Yard, Stephen's going to bring a council bill next council meeting for some rental equipment to start on the yard. So we are ready to go. So I think that's all I have.
This is the season for construction.
Okay, let's take 5 minutes.
Yeah, sorry.
Plus all those are watching over us, our police and our fire, all those in our armed services. Bless the family of the police officer who was lost his life in Washington. And give us the knowledge and the strength and the abilities to make the decisions in the best interest of our community. We ask in thy name, amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Show all present except for you.
Marion Woodard, I move to excuse Councilmember Severs due to family issues who's still in Florida from the passing of their family member.
Second?
A second for the discussion, I hear all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that vote, the agenda's before you.
Mayor, move the agenda.
With an ex-
Oh, sorry, sir. As amended.
As amended?
I'll describe the amendment as an addition to the signal at Signal Road project to include the ability to move the box.
Second?
Okay, we'll make that like action item C.
Under general business 2, B2,
B2.
and it will be worded to increase the contingency on the Signal Road project to cover the cost to move the box.
Okay. As amended, all in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
It's adopted. Citizen comments. Your 3 minutes of fame. Had to be once, twice. We're moving on. Okay, report city boards and commissions. I report, park board. Anybody?
Planning commission's here?
Planning commission?
No?
You're on vacation? Oh,
Did you do a quick one for salary commission?
sure, we'll take that.
Mayor and City Council, thank you. I'm Holly Woodruff. I'm a member of the Salary Commission, one of 3. I would just like to let everybody know that we have a public hearing coming up a week from today, April 9th, at 7 o'clock here in council chambers, I believe. But we'd love to have as many people come to give input as to just we'll explain our process and ask you for your input because we would really like to hear from the public. Our regular meeting will be this Thursday at 1:30 in Council Hall Chambers, City Council Chambers. So just to let you know, we're moving right along with our process. We're crunching numbers. We're looking at other cities. I think we're moving along really well and hopefully getting close to a decision. So thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Any others? Going forward, the Liberty Lake Sewer and Water, and Commissioner here, I don't see one. And the fire department's not here, right? So, council reports. Mike?
I've got one. A week ago Sunday, I went to the STA annual success dinner that they had out at the casino. It was well attended. There was 200 some odd people there. Food was good. Dessert was even better, I must admit. But they each year they do this and they give out awards for longevity. Things I start there. And some things I found were most interesting is that some of these bus drivers, they had 2 or 3. One individual, I think, had been there in excess of 30 years and had never had one accident or complaint. Well, I wonder how long he stayed in the lunchroom and never got out there. And what they consider an accident, if you bump a mirror or anything whatsoever, you have an encounter with a citizen, they look at that as an accident. It's absolutely remarkable. And the other thing I found very impressive is how many individuals had 10, 15, 20 years attendance and never missed a day. I don't know if there's so many employees that they were able to hide, but it was a great event. I certainly would encourage anybody else in the future to attend something like that. Thank you.
Other reports? We're here, Katie?
Hey, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I have a quick report. Looks a little long, but I'll move it along fairly quickly, and Tate's going to pull it up on the screen. You should have pictures, or excuse me, you should have copies of my report in front of you. So I thought I'd show a picture of the crane installing the pump at Trailhead. So this is what was last week. They installed the new pump. It's down about 150 feet, am I correct, Scott? And things went without a hitch. So we're real happy with that. So moving right along, parks are open. The restrooms are going to be open, and all the porta potties are going to go away. Orchard Park, it's going to be weather dependent, but we're looking at a soft opening between May 27th and June 15th. As soon as we get a date, it will be based on the progress of the contractor. Once we get a date, we'll let all of you know so that we can have a celebration. And then the other thing I was going to mention is splash pads. We don't have a date yet. Generally, it's driven by weather and phone calls. So right now, it's to be determined.
That includes the new one at Orchard Park.
Yes, it does. Moving right along to number 3. So I'm going to take just a minute and talk about Harvard and Henry Road. We're in the end of the cycle, so to speak, of the legislative cycle. There's only a few more weeks in session. The mayor and myself and our lobbyist and Mike Gribner from WashDOT have had a number of serious meetings. We continue to, there continues to be modifications, but as it stands right now, the funding for Harvard Road widening, the westbound on-ramp, Henry Road, and Barker Road are funded to a total of about $20.9 million. That is about $6 million short of what the estimate can be. I don't want to go into a lot of details right now because things are moving. We had a meeting today with WashDOT and accomplished a great deal. But there could be a scenario where the city of Liberty Lake is on the hook to cover some of that shortfall. And through our conversations with WashDOT, ourselves, and also the TIF and lift people, there's a possibility that we can cover whatever shortfall is needed through TIF and lift, Harvard Road mitigation, and then some property savings on the right-of-way acquisitions. So all of it's very jumbled right now, but I feel like Mayor, we're in a really good spot. We made a lot of progress today, this afternoon with WashDOT. So we'll know more, not next week, but I think it's the following week, and we'll keep you informed. But again, it's hard to keep everyone informed all the time because things are literally changing. Things are different today than they were on Friday.
Just a quick reminder, Katie, so all the projects together go out to what date?
Well, so the state is looking at, let me answer that question, 2021 would be Barker, Harvard, and the on-ramp.
Okay.
If you throw Henry into the mix, part of it could be done in 21, and you're obligated to spend the money by 2023. But that project can be built in stages. And everything is funded through a biennium, and so there's an obligation to spend those monies in those allocations, in those time slots, I'll say that. Is that confusing to you
Yeah, for
guys?
some reason I was thinking it went out farther in years than that.
Initially,
It was
when
2029
Connect
originally, wasn't
Washington, it was 2029 to 30. And so the goal was to move it up with our partners. We've been very successful in trying to do that. And the delivery point, and our goal on the delivery points is basically fall of 21 for all projects. The roundabouts aren't going to be, they're very simple.
You're talking about at Barker?
Barker, yeah, I mean, that's the simplest piece of the puzzle. But, and then, right now, it's in the mix, and we're working to try to have the Senate and the House Conference Committee totally fund the project. So.
It's still not a done deal, but one of the things I wanted to mention is once the reconciliation budget gets passed, then we need to sit down with WashDOT, go through all the details, and then bring an agreement between WashDOT and the city back to you. And then we can go over all the logistics of where do we have, what are we responsible for as a city, and what would be some funding strategies to pay for that, that shortfall.
Now, I know it'll be up to the last minute and probably won't make the start of the farmer's market, but it would be great to have some sort of graphic or talking points for us at the farmer's market, because this always comes up. And I think we have more exciting news to share this year, but we want to make sure we're all singing from the same sheet of music and make sure we all have our facts straight.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, yeah, so so far, I think we're happy where we are, but there's still a long way to go, so. With that note, I am going to mention that STA let us know that the dash, if you remember the dash, was submitted by the rideshare people, was actually picked up by WashDOT, and they, by STA, and they submitted it, and a grant of $180,000 was allocated for the dash. The dash, for those of you that aren't familiar, is it's a shuttle, if you will, from the park and ride to our campuses, our job campuses, in the morning and in the afternoon, and then during the day, it's a dash around Liberty Lake for our residents to go from park to park to park, or library will be in the route. So we still have a lot of coordination to do with STA, but Councilmember Kennedy, I don't know if you saw that email that Susan had sent.
That's why I called you.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot more information about it other than just an email from Susan Meyer letting us know that it got funded to the tune of $180,000.
What was interesting to follow up on that is, you recall, it was actually turned down
Yes.
at one point, and then it got involved again and was able to get it accomplished.
I think it's funded for 1 year upstart and then a little bit of a second. It's a pilot. So,
Can't,
about 1.5.
First year was about $120,000, and about $60,000 for the second year. I think it was $68,000.
What was the bulk of the money was initially there?
I think about 180. I think it was 168.6 in my mind, but I think it's about 180. So I think it's 120 or something like that initially.
But I was at the operational pieces.
Well,
I'm sure first year's capital as well.
yeah, the first year, because it was larger there, because of the capital of the bus.
So that's good. We'll bring back some more details. Right now, I didn't have any more than
That's
what you
recording with the SCA.
let us know. So the public works yard in the north field, so I'll talk about the public works yard. Scott mentioned that we're getting a grader. We're going to start clearing that site. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a fence up around it. And then on the north field, so there's kind of two projects over there. One is our project on the parking lot side and the maintenance road. And then if you notice, CB has a contractor that mobilized, and they are grading the field. And then they're going to do the frontage improvements on Boone next year. That's not, the frontage improvements on Boone are not included. So that's the sidewalk and the landscape strip. They're going to do that next year.
Oh, they're doing that? I thought that was ours.
They're going to do the frontage improvements adjacent to their fence.
Gotcha.
They're going to do that next year, but so everything's moving along there. Moving to number 5, so I know the chief kind of touched quickly on the Safe City. There was not a lot in the audience, but I just want to give a big shout out for our police department. Being number 5, recognized Liberty Lake is the 5th safest city in the state of Washington. I have a map of all the cities, and if you look up there, the cities that are ahead of us, if you want to know who's number 1, 2, and 4, Snoqualmie, Mercer Island, Camas, and Linden, we're number 1, 2, 3, 4, and we were number 5. And then the next slide I'm going to have Tate put up is they have our population off just a little bit because, as you know, we're about 10,300. But our median income is just under 65,000. Violent crime rate per 1,000 is 0.63, and property crime rate per 1,000 is 16.41. All of that is just a tremendous recognition for our police department, our dedicated officers, and our citizens that are committed to a safe community. So, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, so as Chief Asmus said, we're moving in the right direction. That maybe next year we'll be number 2. Who knows? The Coalition for Against Bigger Trucks, I have more information if you want it. There's a letter that we provided all of you if you are so inclined to sign it to support legislation against the triple trailers. sign the letter and give it to Tate at the end, or RJ at the end of the meeting, and we'll mail it in. There's also an email that some of you might have received that the lobbyist was asking for you to support that as well. So it's totally your call. The city of Liberty Lake doesn't have a formal position on this effort, but if you are so inclined to sign the letter, we'll make sure that they get mailed in. Okay, moving to number 7, dates to remember. This kept growing and I cut it off at the end of the page because this is a busy season in Liberty Lake. So spring break, as you all know, is going on right now. The Easter egg hunt is April 20th. The citywide training day, just a reminder, we're going to be closing the library all day on the 23rd, and City Hall will be closed from 9 to 2:30. And this will be an all-day training for our staff on safety, filling out forms, insurance requirements, email protocol, a whole host of things. And it's just so much more efficient for us to do it in one fell swoop than it is to break it out over the course of time. Arbor Day at the Diamonds, you're all invited. It is April 24th, it's at noon. The Liberty Lake Police Department Tribute Car, if you have questions on what that is, you can ask the chief, but that's April 27th. Did you want to add anything? What is it?
Okay, so the police department had a car, a retired Crown Victoria, donated to our agency. And one of our officers, Officer Mike Bogan, thought it would be a nice idea to recognize fallen officers by creating a tribute car. We have a volunteer police ambassador named John Bujosa, this has been a dream project of his for many, many years. And so he's taken it and run with it. And so there's no cost associated with this for the city. All the components are donated, but basically it's a tricked out looking Liberty Lake police car with a fancy graphic on it. On the hood of the car is the names of all the fallen officers in Washington State and in northern Idaho. It's on there to recognize them, and then there'll be some other parts of the car that have a running tribute to those fallen officers on the in-car computer and those types of things. So the plan is for this car to be used in regional events, festivals, parades, that type of thing. So not only representing the fallen officers, but our own police department.
And I do have a correction to make. Arbor Day is not April 24th, it's April 26th. So that's 26th at noon at the Diamonds. Spring cleanup is Saturday, April 27th, and for those Liberty Lake residents that have garbage service, there's Goodwill, there's Clean Green, things that you can drop off, and then there's also bulky waste, they call it. And the flyers should be going out from Waste Management to our citizens in the next few weeks. Farmers Market starts May 18th, and then the Memorial Day breakfast this year is Monday, May 27th, and we've made arrangements for Colonel Newberry to be our keynote, so he'll be speaking, and we hope for good weather, so the turnout is really good. So I think that concludes my report. If there's any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
With the workshop?
Mayor, when we talked last, we had discussed having a workshop on this issue today. However, we are still waiting for the PDC to get back some more information. They had, since the last meeting, they requested more information relative to the article and the writings, and including examples. So we're still waiting for them to give us a response. And so as soon as we get that information, then I think we can have a workshop, but I think it's better that we wait until we receive that information.
Thank you for your work on this, Sean.
Okay, ordinance number 168.
So I'll kick us off on this. This is our donation ordinance. I did a little bit of research, and I wasn't here in 2008 when it was put together. And it's in your packet. I'm sure you've all had a chance to look at it. It seems to work really well from where I sit. A lot of our donations, I'll give you a few examples. I think most of them end up coming in through Jen's group from donations of benches. I know last year Rotary, a member of Rotary actually donated $300 for a tree to be planted at Arbor Day. We follow the policy, and it's pretty well written because it allows for us to accept those donations where there's a value to the city. If there's a dollar threshold that gets exceeded over $10,000, it comes to the council for acceptance. And as far as I know, there's only been one that fell into that category, and it's our public art sitting in our reception area. Overall, we handle donations pretty straightforward, and I know Jen, like I said, she's the one that receives most of those requests to be the recipient of donations. So with that, I don't have anything else to say other than to answer whatever questions or concerns you have.
Just one of the notes that I made in going through this, and it's really just on my mind because I remember this discussion since my husband was involved in the fundraising. So in section 8C, it talks about the size of the plaques as it relates to the value of the donation. I would ask that we entertain adding one at least more level to that. So it was quite a while ago when my husband was involved with baseball. I think Shane had taken a leave, and my husband had actually worked with Group Health at the time, and they were willing to pay for the entire renovation of what's now the baseball field at Pavilion Park. I forget what it's called now. They were going to pay for that entire renovation, but what it came down to at the time was they weren't going to be allowed to have a large enough sign to acknowledge their donation, and so it didn't happen. So I would entertain either adding another level to this in case we are fortunate enough to get a donor like that, because I know Multicare is very involved in it and doing government stuff, and I would hate to lose support from a partner like that because they wanted bigger recognition.
But I asked that this be put on the agenda for tonight, and what I've done is taken the time to outline a ordinance proposal, and in keeping with time and trying to keep this moving forward, nobody here other than myself has had an opportunity to look at what I've prepared. So I would like to give this to you tonight, ask that it be tabled. We'll take it up again the next meeting, next one coming up, and give each and every one of you time to look at it, make your adjustments, put down your own thoughts, and then we'll have something a little bit more stable to actually talk about. So,
Great, thanks.
I would certainly support that.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that vote.
Probably looks better than my chicken scratches. Thank you.
thanks. Thank you.
I just have a question about, is there any inherent conflicts between the existing ordinance number 168 and the Parks and Art Commission policy and procedures that we approved?
I don't think there is, because I think when Jen and I were going through this, we looked at that issue relative to this ordinance and the Parks and Arts Commission.
It actually refers to this
Yeah, I
ordinance
think that's the,
for
yeah.
purposes of consistency.
Okay, that was my concern. Very good, thank you.
And then, Councilmember Kaminskas, just real quick, if you have any suggestions on how we could address that situation, I heard about it, but I didn't know about it firsthand. But it sounds like maybe there just needs to be more flexibility on the size of the recognition, something. And I would be a fool to try to guess what the right size is. But maybe if you could offer some wording that we could look at,
Yeah.
that would be helpful.
Thanks.
So we will add this to our agenda for April 16th for another workshop. And if you have any questions in the meantime, send them our way. Thanks.
Thank you.
Scott? Right.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the council again. So we continue to want to take the Trailhead Master Plan ahead at baby steps every meeting or every couple of meetings. So this is the next step I believe. And what I want to talk about tonight is a little bit, I just want to revisit why are we doing this? Because as we start looking at different things, we kind of say, well, geez, a lot of things I think we probably all talked about we want, we already have, so why are we doing this? So I wanted to just kind of visit that quickly. And then I wanted to go through a list of, the first meeting we talked, everybody had a couple things that was really important to them, right? And I basically assembled those into what I consider two lists, a must-have and the others these are nice to have, right? But maybe we don't must-have these. And so I only have like 5 slides, and I was hoping to get through those and then get to a point where I'm going to have the two lists side by side and then have the council kind of look at it and say, hey, that one needs to be on this side of the line. Hey, this one needs to be over here. You know, this is not a must-have. And kind of make some, just like kind of just get where we're kind of really starting to zero in on some things. And then I think the next step for us as a staff then would be to take those ideas of the must-haves and the nice to have and go out with an RFQ for a consultant that actually start firming some of those ideas up. So that's where I'm going with it today. So Jennifer is in the process of getting for the existing building, having the review done on the existing building. And we're not quite there yet, but you think it's probably, what, a month?
A couple weeks.
Couple weeks away.
We're building the software right now, so once the software's built.
And that's going to weigh really heavily, I'm sure, into some of the future decisions, so we want to get that early on. But as I listen to all the issues, everything, why are we doing this? I mean, we do have ADA issues, right? We've got it temporarily solved, but the driving range and that still isn't probably perfect. And we've addressed in the past about the deck having some structural issues, and it's maybe not great. We all know about the banquet meeting room, you know, it's marginal. It sort of works. We know we've got some HVAC issues. We know the building's tired, and we've heard some talk about possibly we need some more parking. So I think we're still, even though a lot of the things that are going to be on the must-have list are things we already have, they're really not functioning all that great in some cases. So, must-haves. I think we probably want a pro shop. I think that's probably still in there if we're going to have a golf course. And we definitely need parking. I think there's still consensus that we want some kind of a restaurant with everybody. We've talked about a couple of you said, hey, banquet meeting room, that's a deal breaker for me. I want to have that. We need some place to put Chris. He's got to have some place to sit, whether it's over there makes sense. I think we still want to have a putting green. I think we still want to have a driving range, and we still need some kind of storage. So I kind of took your comments and I said, well, this is the first blush, first take at hey, these are must-haves. And then you get to the fun stuff. And these are nice to have, but maybe it's not must-have. Maybe we don't want to fund all this. And so, you know, we want some kind of outside deck or patio eating area. That's kind of nice to have. Do we want some kind of a view restaurant? I mean, do we want to do something different, you know, go higher or change the site so that we have a view of the lake? You know, we've heard talk about that. Do we want to reconfigure the golf course so we have some kind of a signature golf hole? Do we want to spend the 1.2 or 1.4 million on a whole brand new driving range net? You know, throw out ideas, golf cart charging station. Or do we want to just take the whole golf course and just turn it into a top golf station? I mean, that's an idea I've heard kicked around. Does it have to be a new facility, or do we want to, you know, try and fix up the old facility? Golf car repair shop. Do we want to get into that business, or keep sending them out like we have been? And then I just had more putting. So those are just some ideas I have. And what I'm hoping is that this next stage is to throw it open. And if I don't have it on the list, let's get it on the list. And if you see things that need to move, I'd like to have some discussion from the council on that.
Okay. So,
Who wants to go first?
who wants to go first? Yeah. Jump right in.
Sure.
Chris.
So totally agree with everything on the must-have. That basically is, you know, the part of the checklist that we got from Chris. You know, and with regards to the banquet and meeting room, I know that there were challenges with it. having to turn down certain tournaments because we couldn't seat enough people in that room. From the nice to have list, for me, I would say patio and or some sort of outside eating would probably move closer to a must-have for me, just because that sort of goes hand in hand with golf and would probably drive more traffic. Unit. Those are really, for me, the only two must-haves from the nice-to-have list. I would say new facility would depend on an evaluation by engineers and whoever those experts are. My fear is that we start tearing down walls in that place and it's going to cost us more to renovate it than it will be to tear it down and start over.
Discussion on the net and the patio?
I concur with Chris insofar as outdoor seating is to me part and parcel of a summer event, summer recreational activity. To me is, definitely something that can be planned for and made arrangements for in the project.
So could you help me out? I'm looking at other nice to have, and you have in there the new net, correct? Yeah, new net.
Yep.
Well, that has to be replaced, doesn't it, already? Why isn't that on the other side? As a matter of fact, I thought I saw it on the west-hand side was a driving range, yeah.
I think what we have is functional right now, but we know that we're facing repairs in the next couple of years. So we still want to keep the net. We're making the decision we want to keep the net, and then the question is, do we want to just completely replace it, or do we want to just basically maintain it as we need to as we
Do
go?
you have the prices on both of those options?
I believe, I don't know, but I know that replacing it was somewhere around 1.2 to 1.4 million from
See,
previous.
that's one of the problems that we're facing with this whole thing. We come to make, not just you, okay, anybody show up, they want us to make choices, we have no idea about cost. Okay? The proposer doesn't have cost, okay? So again, we're getting to the point where, oh yeah, let's just check this off, let's check that, and we have no idea how much it's gonna cost.
That's true. The next step would be to take these must-haves and nice-to-haves and flesh out the cost, right? So to actually develop a couple scenarios that include what we say are the must-haves, and then head to a pricing stage where then we come back and the council can say, no, okay, that sounded like a must-have, but now that we see what it's going to cost, that's definitely out. Because we got from RJ some of the financing options, right? There's a wide range of financing options. We do need to know what it's going to cost. I think somebody did the analogy of who buys a car without knowing how much you can spend, right? But then I also think, well, I know I need an SUV, and I want to, I need four-wheel drive because I live in an area. That's what we're doing here. Okay.
Can you tell me what number one, what a Top Golf is? I'm not sure about, so I need that information. Also, what is a signature golf hole? I don't know what that is either.
Okay. Top Golf, I would say, it's actually a franchise that it's basically a golfing recreation facility that's almost entirely oriented towards driving range. And what they do is it's a 3 or 4 levels structure that incorporates a restaurant, probably some kind of a bar. And what they do is they have targets out in the field. And it's a pretty large thing, and you shoot at these targets, and it's all computerized chip balls that then return, and you get a score. So you compete against your buddies and stay up and just hit golf balls, and it's an absolute blast. I've done it before, and that was an idea that was thrown out. So that's the one thing. The other one is signature golf hole would be the concept of going to our other property that we originally were going to put a trail through, and having some kind of signature golf hole that comes down the hill with a beautiful view, and just something really unique. It could even be one of our other holes, but probably you don't have as much opportunity there. So it would just be something that's unique. That's kind of like the floating green at the Coeur d'Alene. Everybody knows, I know Liberty Lake's signature hole is the #1 at Trailhead.
Thank you.
Okay.
The quick comment on the Top Golf, my son works over at the Flying Squirrel, and they've got 3 or 4 Top Golf booths.
Okay.
Over there, they run about $80,000 a piece. Yeah, so.
This is a totally different. So this would be an outdoor facility that would be. It would be.
And they have the
Basically, the golf course would probably have to go away, or we'd have to reconfigure in a major
So
way.
then they're 2 different things.
They're very large facilities.
It's a very large
The golf
facility.
course would have to go away?
Or at least at minimum be
You spent $1.3
reconfigured.
million on an irrigation system.
So is that what we're
Hey,
talking?
it's an idea that's been put on the table, so I agree with you. Don't shoot the messenger.
So when Chris was here last year, he was talking about putting in indoor golfing simulators, which is what they got called Top Golf over Flying Squirrel. So are we sure that's what we're talking about with regards to the Top Golf? I want to clarify what that
I
really
think to
is.
some extent, if you look at the concept of Top Golf, is who's going to run it and how's the money going to flow. Top Golf has their own proprietary type deal. Is it larger in driving range? It depends a little bit. I don't necessarily think it's really that much larger in area for the driving range per se. The cost is borne by the developer, the owner of Top Golf. The revenue structure is such that the city benefits and the community from a taxing standpoint, sales tax, revenue standpoint, is sustainable from a standpoint of that, you're not into that yourself. And it's developed by the owner of the Top Golf. So then you're not looking at, do we have to have capital invested in this deal? The big consumption, I think, in Top Golf is actually parking. The Top Golfs I've been to, they're probably, a lot is full at 9 o'clock in the morning and it empties out about midnight. So it's quite extensive parking issue that they have. The nets on Top Golf, 100, I think the net height is 185 as far as the poles. And the cost of the netting, because it's the ordinance point, how much does it cost? The netting for Top Golf is about $1.7 million. According to the contract, they put up 50 of them. So, but that's just, again, going back to, what are some of the opportunities you have out there, Scott, right now?
So can I get back to the question I was trying to ask? Because what Chris was suggesting during his presentation was indoor golf simulators that he could use in the winter for lessons. And that people could come in and rent booths and swing the golf club around in indoor simulators. Can you just ask?
That is a separate item. I'll put it on the nice to have.
Because that is, again, if we can just clarify what that is, because obviously there are two things out there called Top Golf. And I know specifically that's what they got over there at Trampoline Park.
Yeah.
Versus what Steve's talking about, and so I think we need to make it very clear.
So golf simulator, why don't we call what?
I'll call it indoor simulators.
Yeah,
for the
it's indoor
listeners.
They're two
simulator.
big,
Yeah,
hugely
it's
different
two
things.
totally hugely different things.
So do you want us to add that to other things to consider as the indoor simulators?
Again, if that's something, I defer to Chris on stuff like that. If that's something he can, that he wants to put on the list for us to look at, great. If not,
Scott, before you got here last year, we really had extensive information on that driving range. And it was a 1.4 million, but then if we wanted these additional poles, it brought up to 1.7 specifically. And that was for new netting because the netting was looked at the time, and it was deteriorated. Netting is absolutely deteriorated. They put so many patches in it that even Chris was saying that they're always trying to repair it because it really needs to be replaced. So it's not maybe another 2 or 3 years on something like that. I have one question. I think all of this is great, but I like the process and I like how we move along. What happened to this? In January, you came to us and you presented this, and this is absolutely outstanding. And we all bought into that. And that was roughly on January 6th. And what was going to be programmed is that we actually put on our website and on the notice board out here for individuals to come forward who wanted to be on this committee.
Yes.
And we've had individuals come forward. And to date, as of this moment, they've never been contacted. And then the idea, based on this analogy, which we bought into this, okay? We didn't buy into this, we bought into this. I like this, but what happened to this process?
I think that process is still on. I think we still want to do the committee, but I think we're the first place where we need committee input is when we we are doing this RFQ and putting the criteria together. I think that's where the committee I think that's where we reconvene, and that's the first item of work for the committee. So,
Scott, why do we spin our wheels with our citizens, asking them to come forward to volunteer, and we don't even give them the courtesy of contacting them? I had this conversation with you weeks ago, it was going to be done. I had this conversation with the mayor over a week ago, it was going to be done. And now I see there's a new process. I'm not against the process so much. What I'm against is the slow molasses things that get done. And this was presented in January. Now we're in March, 3 months later, and now we've got a new program we're looking at. And with the idea that we're going to go through this, and then we're going to get these individuals together and present it to them, I'm a little,
If I can.
I've lost faith.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm losing faith in the
those
process.
are all good questions. Harvard Road has taken a lot of our time, as has Mission, and I'm not trying to make excuses. But I do want to point out that what we wanted tonight was to get your feedback so that we could include these comments tonight, Mike, in the procurement for the qualification-based selection for someone that could help us. As far as if there's someone that has volunteered to be on the committee, we can follow up with them this week. So it is taking longer than we expected. I think what we should do, Scott, is we could update that schedule and go from there.
I take responsibility.
I don't feel you have to, okay? And I'm not, believe me, I'm not here to dress you down, okay? This is what we were told we're gonna move ahead on. And this is what I was expecting. If it's gonna be different, then that's gonna be fine. But, and I understand Harvard Road, I understand the concerns that came up with Mission, and things of that sort there. But also, we have to look at that if Scott in his position is so preoccupied with these other things, then maybe we need somebody else to direct this. Because those continual things are going to come up. That's going to take Scott's time away, Lisa's time away, your time away. And this can keeps getting kicked down the road. We're 3 months into this now, 90 days from the time it was presented. And we're no really further ahead. Now, I understand if you had to put this time towards these other projects. Well, how much time did it take towards this? That could have been taken, at least this time could have been taken, for the courtesy of the individuals, our citizens. But we've said we want you to be part of this, to at least give them a call. That bothers me. We ask individuals to get involved. We tell them we want them to get involved, and then we come up with this and ignore them. Now, I like this process, but come on. This is what we were sold.
Shane?
Scott, I appreciate the information that you brought before us. I am with Odin on this. I feel that this is a little premature. I think that we're still trying to assess the building, see if it's even viable. I know that we were putting money out there to see what we could even do with the property. So I think that this is a little premature in the process. I think we need to move forward with the understanding of what we initially talked about. I feel like this is a little premature.
Well, I'll weigh in on this being premature. So what's very important when we hire a consultant is that we give them clear direction, because the last thing we want to do as an owner is not be clear as to what we want the consultant to do. Owners that don't know what they want, you're going to spend a lot of time and money, and it's just going to cost a lot of time and money. I'll just leave it at that. What we really wanted today was your feedback on these items so we could move forward with the procurement of a project manager. And it might be premature on the building side, but we all have a pretty good sense of what we're going to find at the building. But still, we're going to get that in a couple of weeks. I don't think that it's going to overlap with this effort, though, because if we have to have a pro shop, a parking lot, a restaurant, office space, putting green, driving range, storage on the must-have side, what we wanted was your feedback on what would be the nice-to-haves, so we can include that in our selection for the consultant. But it's hard, if we wait 2 more weeks, then we'll have more information on the condition of the building.
I guess I would like to clarify what I mean by that. The must-haves, we know we need to have.
Okay.
That's a given, right? A lot of the stuff on the right, there's a good portion of it that we haven't even had conversations on. The whole Topgolf thing, I've never heard anyone at this table bring it up, not once. So for us to make a decision tonight, or even to weigh in on the like-to-haves, is premature, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, thank you.
If I could just, I'm sorry. If I might, Scott, You know, sitting here and just getting at a quick thought, and I apologize for not being forewarned about this so I could really think about it, but a lot of the must-haves cover the others, okay? The others are nice to have. So if you, all this is relevant to selecting someone, if you select someone that is capable to take care of all the must-haves, they'll automatically have the skill to take in the other. Because, such as patio, outside eating, that ties directly to the restaurant we're having in the meeting room banquet, okay? It's no big jump from one end to the other. We want a restaurant. You want a high-end restaurant? No big jump. Signature golf hole? No comment. High-end driving range? We gotta have a driving range. Nobody told me what the difference between the two are, but we're already addressing the driving range. So that gets included. Charging station? No. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Top golf, I need to learn more. My colleague just showed me some information about it, and it kind of clicked an interest, okay? But I don't know anything about it.
That one was actually in deference to you, because you said, hey, let's not rule anything out.
That's,
I actually
Yeah,
put
no,
that one
you're
on
inside.
because of your comment.
so, you know, the new facilities, well, we don't know, okay? I mean, we're unable to say, and it just goes on and on. What I'm saying is, if you get somebody that's capable of making a decision on the one side, they are capable of making a decision on all those nice-to-have sides. So, right now, until we get further down the road, I'm with you, Shane. You know, the must-haves, we must have.
One last question then. I'm sorry, Dan, you brought in.
If you don't mind, thanks. So like, I think Scott on the right, I think you've done a great job in assessing the Awana House. I think it's appropriate every action I've seen it. I want to embellish the last item, we'll call it more putting. I like to embellish that simply as putting course. And what we'll refer to is, I've seen really well developed city of Chelan is like 9 holes on natural grass. That creates, I'd say, a lot of family and even teenage kind of activities. This is like, we'll call it, it's not mini golf because it's natural grass, but a park-like scape that could be an attractive agent for families and family time in the community. So you just put putting course rather than more putting in reference to what that might be.
I would be interested in that. That would be, that's not a bad idea.
Really,
I'd just like to make a
really doesn't
comment
take
about-
up that much room, what you're talking about, Dan.
Pardon me if I may, thank you, Mayor. I think it's kind of premature also to be making any decisions on any of these things. Until we know more about really the existing facility, what the options might be there. But, I played that golf course a few times, and, it's kind of wild. I've also played golf in about 25 states around the country, and I know a little bit about what different golf courses can offer. I think we ought to have some kind of a signature hole, and we ought to have some kind of a water feature. Since we have the new irrigation system, we have plenty of water, so there's no reason why we can't have a water feature on a signature hole on the golf course. That would seem to be logical and make some sense. But I'm open to, again, doing anything on the property. Also, we said we're going to be in the golf business, but I don't think we can rule out the alternative of having someone else develop the property. Maybe through a joint venture with the city, or even selling the property, if it's in the best interest of the community to do that, to a developer who can develop it in a high character manner. Thank you.
I have one question. Is this no longer,
That is still the roadmap we're working for, yes.
I don't know what you're looking at, Councilman Kennedy.
what Scott gave us is very professionally done, is on a time frame.
I don't have it with me.
Yeah,
Sorry.
try to get certain things done and for a guideline. and it's not cast in concrete, everything is a variable, such as our budget.
I think you're the only one who has that with you though, and I can't look at it and make any comment or judgment on it if I don't have it.
Well, I'm not bringing it up, so I guess we'll make a comment. I'm just asking the question, is if this was the direction that the council said we're moving in, now we have another direction. So I was asking, is this no longer important? So the benefit should be, is that, so all the council members have this, at our next meeting, everybody has this, so we can look at it again. Because if other individuals other than the council have made a decision, this is no longer viable. I'm curious who makes that decision.
Can I
If it's not, let's
Can I
get
offer
rid of it.
something? So I'm not going to be here on our next council meeting, April 16th, and I know Scott has a lot on his plate with some things. Why don't we regroup, update the schedule, and bring back some more information on it? I believe it's May 2nd, I'm doing that from memory. It's the first council meeting in May. So that's a month from, it's 4 weeks from tonight. We can work on it, Scott.
So I think if I update that schedule, what you'll see is obviously I didn't get the committee together.
Scott, you and I have had conversations, and I've said to you, quite honestly, I was concerned about this thing keep getting postponed. You know, and you should not take any heat on this. Because as far as I'm concerned, you put together a pretty good program. Okay, pretty good, an excellent program. If we hadn't decided to have this meeting tonight, this would have gotten kicked down 2 more weeks down the road, and we would have been another month down the road.
So we'll bring back something on May 7th. RJ, just let me know that's the first council meeting in May.
And I'll commit to contacting the volunteers.
Is it critical that you're here? Is that the concern?
No. Just, Scott, do you have, in the next 2 weeks though, do you have sufficient time to pull together a committee?
Yes.
Okay.
There are probably, what, 6 or 7 people that have shown an interest.
Okay.
Are we gonna have information back on the building at that point?
No.
Yeah.
So, again, I think you pull a committee together, you try to give them something to committee size about. And I think that's kind of been our quandary. We didn't know exactly what the questions we were to bring up to the committee, or what the expectations might be. This is why we're meeting. I think that's in my head the big, I have this little button and it was given to me by Ben Small. And it says, why on it? It says, why are we doing this? You know, and I think that's kind of from the standpoint, and when we went around, who wants to be on the committee? I mean, everybody in the council wants to be on the committee, so we're talking about it tonight. So we are somewhat the committee. You know, what are we trying to get to? Why do we want to do this? You know, what is our direction? And I think that Scott's been trying to pull that out of each and one of us. Now, this is not a new issue in my head. I mean, we've been talking about trail, I mean, I don't know, 2 years now or 3 years. So it's not brand new. It's not like, hey, we just thought about this last week. You know, so it's been around and around and around. And so we're still trying to get to that. Why are we doing this? We let Blinky go, or, you know, change out his lease and say, what is it? Do we want to have a restaurant? What is it that we want? We're still asking that why. And we have to solidify that why in our minds, at least from the council's standpoint. You know, last meeting, we talked about, well, how much money do you want to put at this if we have to put money out of our pocket? And what was the definitive answer? Well, don't know exactly. RJ came back with 3 scenarios, 2, 4, 6 million type dollars. You know, that's at least from, and that was driven, I think, by Councilman Kennedy. He said, you know, let's not go down this road until we figure out if we want to spend some money. And or it's what's going to cost us. The second thing is, you know, we as a council can sit down and pontificate as we want this and that and both sides. But is that market driven? You know, I sent, we had a discussion here a year and a half ago in regards to restaurant leasing and so forth, right? It's basically, you know, what's the market want? What's the market going to decide? You know, we could put, and Katie brought up a very stuck in my head 3 weeks ago. they redid their city hall, and they created all this retail space underneath it that nobody wanted to lease it. Because it wasn't market driven. It was driven by the city, and people had specific ideas. Boy, that sounds like a great idea to us. But the market says, it's too expensive, it's not in the right location, there's no parking, whatever the hell it is. And so it's going back to that why. We want to get the committee together, believe me. I want citizen input. And I think the council wants citizen input. And I think the council wants to give input. We're just trying to kind of take this from 2.5 years ago and move it forward. Going out, one of the things I suggested to Scott was, maybe the RFQ or the RFP would be probably more analysis. But like the airport, when the airport goes out, we're going to, Phelps Field's going through this process right now. We want to build a hangar on this piece of property. This is what our thoughts are. What are your thoughts? Turn in your proposals, and we'll choose from one of those, or we won't choose. But at least we'll get some idea of what the market is. And to me, I think probably right now is we've got to figure out what that market might be, and whether it's involving the committee and saying, hey, just to citizens. Again, not just the council, the citizens really need to be involved, because they're the ones that are going to come out there and say, I don't like the lights at 10 o'clock at night. In my neighborhood. We didn't have them before I moved in here, and I don't want them now. The poles are the height they are today because the people complained about the height of the poles when they were. So I think that schedule is pulled off track a little bit, just in trying to figure out what the why is. And so Scott's trying to figure that out. Tonight was another step towards the why and how. But the why is important because the how and the what don't make any difference, so you know what the why is.
Our why is on the left-hand side, and to Odin's point, a lot of those can be answered on the right-hand side by that left-hand side. We know what we must have. We know our driving directions. We don't know what the building's going to do, if the building's feasible. We don't know what the property of size can hold with a lot of the stuff on the right. So we know what we need. The must-haves are there. So we have a driving direction.
So it was an RFQ, I was going to go out there for a professional that say, hey, what are your qualifications? If this is the kind of stuff we want to do, what are your qualifications and where have you done this before and pulling together a master plan, right? And to be able to do these concepts, right? So I think the next step is an RFQ, unless we decide the method where we just want to throw it out to the public, and I think that's a separate process that we could also do, but it's different. This is an RFQ for a consultant or professional.
But now we get down to the guy.
Yeah, this is a guy.
Right?
Clarification on what we asked Andrew to do is pull some numbers together, was just to see what a dollar amount would come to for a payment. Because this city is a payment, we are payment buyers, okay? We're not in a position to spend out $6 million or more, probably write a check for it, unless we do a council magic line. So the idea was to ask RJ to come up with some numbers. What would it cost us a year to establish that? And then it's easy to put a dollar amount to things. Because if it was, let's say, $6 million, and the payment was X, and we looked at that and said, you know what, that's a maximum we can pay. That's all we can afford to pay. Then a lot of this goes by the wayside based on a $6 million budget. So just for clarification, Mr. Mayor, that's what my goal was to ask.
No, I understand. You want to know if we have the money.
I'm not arguing the fact, I'm just,
I have a rhetorical, okay, so please don't feel the need to answer this, all right? If anybody, any consumer, was looking to hire some expert advice, and in this particular case, we want golf course. I hear the talk about, well, we got to get the right person for the right job, da, 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 da. So that it makes me immediately think that I hope nobody would pick someone who has absolutely no golf course building experience, okay, to come up and make an application for building a golf course, okay? And they'll go on the internet and pull up plans, all right? So, if we're looking for someone who is knowledgeable about golf courses, I assume those would be the ones that we'd want to look at. So I don't see how we can go too far wrong when somebody comes back and says, I've built 8 golf courses, 3 golf courses, never built one, or I've built 100. Right? So if this was a widget, I'd want somebody that's built a widget. So, I don't find the argument compelling that we need all this information to move forward to selecting an expert.
We should know the questions to ask us to get to that.
Anyway, thanks, I appreciate it.
But if, for example, you said you didn't need a restaurant,
Thank you.
I don't think we need somebody to build a golf course, we already have a golf course there, it's already built.
We need to build it.
It's how we might enhance the existing facility that we might
So
consider.
that's a big difference.
And it's the building that's really in question, not the golf course. We already have that. We already have a driving range there. There's a better way to develop that and do it more effectively. As the mayor pointed out, is something that is demand-driven. I don't know how that land should be developed. That's where I think we need some expertise. What are the options, what are the alternatives for developing the property? That's where I think we need assistance.
So, Scott, coming out of this meeting,
yes.
you brought this forward, and we had a lot of discussion, which is good. I guess the next action, I assume that what I get is a consensus amongst the council that we need somebody to kind of put this together from a visual standpoint of what we're gonna try to do. Whether it be a golf architect or some kind of a, right, so you getting the same drift I'm getting?
Yeah, I think if my takeaways from the meeting is that I'm going to get the committee together. I'm going to utilize them in preparation of this RFQ, which is going to set out criteria that allow a guy that has never done a golf course to be rejected. So we use the committee to develop these criteria, bring it to the outline of that to the committee and the council, and then actually prepare the RFQ document in full.
So Mayor, if I could add one
That's what
thing
I'm
that I
adding.
don't see on the list that hasn't come up tonight. We need a business plan because there's a cost of the operations,
It's money.
the revenue in, how much money are we gonna charge for the restaurant, what's the rent, how much space does the pro shop need, how much money are they gonna bring in? I just think we need a business plan associated with whatever we do there so that we can understand the cost of its operation and maintenance. And I just don't see that there, so I think that's a must-have. If you're gonna do this master planning effort for us, I think it needs to include a business plan.
Great idea.
Agreed. And I gotta agree with Bob to a certain extent, okay? Maybe we really do need somebody to come in that has vision that we can't see. Until somebody comes in and sits down and says, hey, have you ever thought of, or this is what they've done someplace else, or this would be a great idea for this city. Before we get down into the weeds, maybe we just need a little bit higher overview of what are some of the choices out there that could be made. Then narrow it down to, okay, we want this type of representative, et cetera. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for your efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Action item, Shane.
Ryan moved action item consent agenda 1 and 2 to approve March 19th, 2019 city council minutes and to approve April 2nd, 2019 vouchers in the amount of $135,087.10.
Second?
Moved in second, further discussion. Hearing all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go, general business.
I move general business number 1 to award bid for Mission Avenue repairs to inland asphalt in the amount of $119,981.
Second?
Moved in second, discussion.
Discussion. Before we make the award, which I'm inclined to agree to making, have we decided on what approach is going to be made? Whether we're shutting down, not shutting down, going one lane, going 2 lanes, only doing it at night, only doing it weekend? Have we made any decision about that we can also give staff and let them move forward without us being surprised later on that, okay, it's shut down, we didn't think it was, whatever.
I guess my question would be, Scott, do you feel like you have direction, or are you still looking to make that decision?
I did not receive direction.
Well-
I thought we were going to discuss it with staff tomorrow.
I think let's just have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor, put together the best strategy, and then provide information to our council, and then everyone on Facebook and all of the
Well, I think the issue is
information
you really want to
source.
make sure that the people know what the hell's going on over
Correct.
there. And what the time period's going to be. And, you know, when, if we're gonna work on it Monday through Friday, or Saturday, Sunday, or whatever the hell it is, just so we know exactly what's happening. And then we've looked at possible alternate routes for the people. They may not get across, but they may be able to go different, going up Harvard or up Parker or whatever, I'm not sure. I think we need to go get all that stuff out. And I think that's where Scott and the contractor and Lisa and Candy can make that, and Brian, chief, how to make that decision, okay?
Yeah, I'll just say we're going to use social media. We're going to put out whatever we're going to do. We're going to try and get notice on social media. We're going to try and do the variable message signs, which, flash a message so that everybody that normally travels that road every day, and if they're not on their Facebook, will know
Put it on the
what's going on.
sign out here.
Yeah, we'll put something, that's a great idea. Put something on our city sign here.
Appreciate that.
And Owen's point of lighting, make sure that it's well lit while we're under construction. Okay? Further discussion? I hear you all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Signal.
Mayor, I move general business number B2 to move the signal box at Signal in the amount of $32,000 with the contingency in play there minus the difference.
About 32,000.
We have about
Yeah, I
17.
do have some contingency. I believe it's in the $15,000 range that I can apply to the $32,000. So the next number I believe is around $17,000, and if it's pennies off that, I'm sorry.
Second?
Moved in second, further discussion?
Yes.
Point of order, Mayor, I'd like to have a roll call vote on this matter and get the opinions of each council member.
Yes, I just want to reiterate one thing that came up in the 6 o'clock meeting, Scott, is that on that, you were going to do some, you threw me, Bob, you want to roll call this?
When it comes time to.
When it comes time to vote.
All right, great. You were going to do some checking on, I forgot what we brought up in the 6 o'clock meeting, you were going to check on, so let's pass on that.
Okay.
I'm sure you're doing a good job.
I got a lot of things to check on.
Yeah, just one question, and as part of this, guys, I tend to be a little on the tight side when it comes to spending money, okay? And I put a proposal up that I think is more than adequate to address the situation. And that was simply a no right turn sign, that's a sign that says no right turn on red light, okay? $150, the problem solved, okay? I find it ironic that we're willing to jump to spend another $17,000 or actually $32,000 total, okay, on a problem that can be solved for $100. All right, and I know, that we're going to hear, oh, well, in the future, this, that, if this happens, if that, well, if it was a skiff, okay, we could roll out. So let's don't put up hypotheticals about what could happen, because, yeah, it could. But it's just amazing to me that there's not enough consensus to say, I can solve this problem this day for $100 of the public's money, but yet our tendency is to spend $32,000 to solve it. Because something may happen. Well, yeah, something will happen. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Further discussion? Not here, David. All in favor, let's see, all in favor, raise your right hand, I guess. So all in favor of this, I got Dan.
Oh, roll call vote.
Sorry, one by one.
Peterson.
You want one by
Call
one?
for,
Yeah.
roll call vote, yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's one by one.
Okay. So Mike?
No.
Mike's no.
Aye, yes.
Chris is yes.
Yes.
Shane's yes.
No.
Bob's no.
Yes.
Odin?
No.
So it's 3-3.
So it doesn't pass.
Huh?
It doesn't pass.
So we go on from there. Second read ordinance.
I'm going to read it tonight.
Sorry.
I'm going to read the ordinance. City of Liberty Lake, Spokane, Washington, ordinance number 257, an ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, amending the street tree regulation contained in the city's municipal code, development regulations contained in the River District specific area plan in the City of Liberty Lake's engineering design standards.
I thought you were gonna read the whole thing.
That is all I'm going to read by
All
title.
80-some pages.
Just the title.
I just brought one page.
The talking points. Yeah, I move ordinance number 257.
Second?
Moving to second discussion.
Please, if it would please the council and the staff, also under this tree ordinance, we've made some very specific recommendations on sizes and types of trees, quality, etc. Please be advised that in the ordinance 168 that I had previously given to each one of you, there is a section in there that talks about donation of trees. And at some point, staff and council, primarily staff, will have to make sure that those two pieces gel between what the new ordinance says and what ordinance 168 provides. Thank you.
Okay.
Was there a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris was second. Right? You were second, Chris?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, I thought I did. Second. Say
Second.
again.
So it's been moved and second. Any further discussion? On ordinances, any citizen comments? On ordinances?
Citizen comments for Jasper, man?
Just for the tree ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Not that one.
Not yet.
Sorry.
Any other comments on ordinance number 257? Hearing, all in favor of ordinance number 257, raise your hand. I count 6 out of 6. It's adopted. Introduction of upcoming items, Kate.
Okay, so correct me if I didn't get them all, but we have a workshop on the Verizon small cell. Hopefully there'll be the needs assessment agreement for the library. The dedication of Indiana Avenue right-of-way. What's happening there is the plat is gonna lag the road going in, and so we need to accept the dedication of Indiana Avenue. As far as the trailhead workshop, did you want that on April 16th or May 7th?
Well, I think,
What did we decide
I
there?
get, one of our concerns is let Scott come back and we'll put it on the agenda as where you're at. Get your committee together, right? I mean, there's no reason to have, so.
So we'll give an update on that. And then finally, the publication of the Mayor's Corner and the Splash, we'll bring that back for the agenda on April 16th.
Now,
Question?
oh,
Katie, a little-
almost, hang on.
Close. Close. Katie, we have on, to be determined, it's been under quite a while, professional service agreement to assess trailhead facility. You recall last year that we had that gentleman come in who gave us somewhat of a presentation. And it sort of went sideways, thought it was premature. You remember what we were talking about when we were looking at hiring him to look at assessment on trailhead? Isn't that the one there?
I'm not tracking.
So if I remember, we had a side week was more on community engagement, wasn't on trailhead.
Go forward. Come on,
Okay.
idea.
You guys,
So we had a gentleman that we were going to entertain engaging his services for a citizen survey.
okay, all right.
That has
Wasn't
nothing to
trailhead.
do with
Okay,
trailhead.
thank you. I thought it was, when I saw it, I
That was
thought that
Bill
might be
Robinson.
trailhead.
Robinson.
We had another guy that does kind of this,
Right.
ran into AWC, and would do this, and that kind of away, so.
Gotcha.
Are we done? You, Mike, we're done? Citizen comments. Brad, you're on. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I have a couple questions and comments. One, first of all, is about the parks and the cameras. Are they functioning? The cameras that are in the parks, are they functioning? Can they video activities there?
Chief?
And how often are they reviewed? Just curious.
So we have existing cameras that are functional, that are working. City purchased newer, better cameras that we're still working on internet connectivity issues to get those activated. But we do have cameras in the parks.
Who's charged with viewing those or reviewing those?
So we review, the police department reviews those in the
Okay.
event that there's a reported incident.
Okay. Does anybody review those on a regular basis?
No.
Just if there's an incident that occurs?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple comments about the trailhead that I'd like to make because I'm very interested in this project and what it could provide for the community. Number one, I have a question. Has that facility ever been assessed, period, by any golf or affiliated firm that has ever assessed not just the course itself, but the associated facilities? I'm just curious, has anybody ever has the city ever asked anybody to assess that?
Is that
The only thing
for
we can
conditions?
is Chris, our professional PGA guy, has looked at it from a design standpoint and so forth. That's what he's done. But we've never had an official assessment come in to
Got
say,
it.
hey, this is what you should or shouldn't do, or this is what somebody else does.
Well, I guess my view of the assessment would be to say, this is what you have, and this is the footprint you have to work with. This is what you could possibly do with the footprint and the thing. So that hasn't been done. Just curious. Scott, I wanted to say thank you for trying to focus, get a focus for direction for the committee that you're going to put together. I thought that was really well done. But I have another question about to the council. I don't want to take too much time. Put the 3-minute timer on me and throw me out.
Hey, we appreciate somebody.
My question or comment is that my understanding was that the building was to be thought of more than just a golf building, that it was supposed to be thought of as meeting needs of the community. And as I looked at the list up there, I see a lot of golf things. I see banquet and whatever room. And that's all I really saw that might meet other things for the community, like maybe rooms for educational purposes for youngsters in the community, or maybe a room that might suffice as a recreational type of thing outside of that. I don't know, that might not be possible with that building and that footprint, but I was hoping to see a little bit more in the way of community offerings within the building. Comment about the net. I'm just asking for clarification. When I sat in a meeting last spring, I think it was, about the net and the driving range, wasn't there a liability concern with that netting situation in terms of golf balls? That's what I understood.
Yes, and you're exactly right. The net is aging, but we did go to limited range balls, and it's working.
Oh, okay, so that was the
And then
solution.
we also posted the driving range area to notify
Got it.
people not to try to keep their balls inside the net. So I would say overall, we haven't had any issues in balls flying out into our parking lot and those things seem to have changed.
No, that was got it. I wasn't quite sure how, when that was brought up. I was just looking for clarification. So I guess those are my main questions, how cost effective it might be to bring in and someone to assess. I heard that a couple times from different council members, how that might be beneficial to assess what that building could or could not become, and that footprint, how it might be best used to achieve what the vision is. And I think whoever, if that was ever done, an assessment was done, then it might be a great idea to also have the assessor understand that it's not just for golf, that it is for trying to meet certain needs of the community. I thank you for your time.
Sir,
And,
before you can you just
and-
give us your name for the record?
Pardon me?
Just your name for the record.
Oh, I didn't give it, I'm sorry. Brad Hamlin,
Thank you.
23213 East Settler Drive. Thank you.
Any other comments? No, oh, there we go. Thank you, James.
Start the timer.
You're saying we're gonna leave it?
No, that's just, we need to do it on a regular basis. All right, thank you. James Alexander, Legacy Ridge. I'd like to address some of the things I heard tonight to the mayor and the council. So for Mission Road, my opinion is you should close the road, get it done overnight, and the reason is it's gonna be safer. Trying to have cars driving back and forth on a road that's all torn up and work people, right there. There could be issues with that. There's less community impact if you get it done in 2 days versus 5. The contractor only has to bring the equipment out once, get it done, and get out of there. It's gotta be cheaper. So that's my input on Mission. Plus, I can see that road from my house. I look out that window all the time. There is less traffic on the weekend, but I do see those STA buses going, and they can take Euclid or something else. And if you stop traffic at the roundabout and just past the church, there's nothing out there. Okay, so I think that'll work. On the golf course, I suggest going out for request for proposal to several consultants. And what you're gonna ask them is, we have a golf course, I want you to come back with a proposal to optimize what we have, given the space, the land, the option of the other addition of land. You have to fix the problems. In my opinion, the golf driving range is broken. It was designed improperly. The whatever, those places you stand and hit off the mats, they're pointed the wrong direction. That causes the problem that required, I was the one who suggested the limited range balls to help address the safety issue. Get those oriented the right direction. So that's a must fix. Optimize and have them optimize the amenities for maximum community use for people to get in there and actually use it as much as possible, and that will drive the return on all of the money you're spending and community satisfaction. So all the things on the nice to have list, a fine restaurant, well, does it make business sense? Do the pro golf thing, or whatever it was called. There's other ones in town. Do we need another one? I don't know. What's the business plan to add each of those amenities? Thank you.
Any other comments? Not hearing any,